more often than not, but usually a percentage of concentration. I think it's a bipartisan W. Yeah, I mean, I think that there should be better regulation on like federal drugs too. I mean, absolutely, that's the case. Yeah, 100 fucking percent. Let me see how I find the rest of this shit too, because I might get into it. Biden's done nothing to about the illegal drug problem. I feel like a lot of people don't really. I don't know. I feel like maybe this is just me, but I think that a lot of things nowadays have become like a political topic and like a polarizing political topic that really shouldn't be. Like, I'll give you some examples. People doing drugs, like, this is obviously bad and you should address it immediately. People stealing. If somebody is going into a CVS and stealing things out of a CVS, it's bad. It's that fucking simple. It's bad. And so, like, what are we even talking about immediately, right? Yeah, what's this again? So, it's crazy how people have gotten into, like, this weird mind control where it's okay to do this shit. And I see it all the time. It's like people have these weird-ass positions on topics now. It's so dumb. Elections were over? Yeah, exactly. Oh, our drugstores in the city have been shut down due to stealing? Well, it wouldn't happen. Like, you just put them in, you just arrest them, put them in jail, right? I mean, it's so fucking simple, but apparently people don't understand it. It's sad. Common sense has been lost. I feel like a lot of people, it's not even that common sense has been lost, it's that common sense isn't even rewarded, and people don't want to hear about common sense. They want to hear that their own sense is getting, you know, reassured. Was this your Minecraft movie trailer? They made another one? I didn't even see that. I might look at it. Give me a second. I'll look at a few more of these. So stores have more theft, and it's just a straight lie from the companies themselves. No stores have closed to theft? You think no stores closed to theft? So let me get this here. Let's go ahead. Let's break this down. How do you know they're lying? So you're saying that the company closed because of theft. Why do you think they closed? We're gonna do this, and I want to watch this video. Yeah, let me get to the bottom of this. We're gonna figure it out. They just didn't like the money. Yeah, like, you think they closed because they were tired of making money? Like, what happened? Yeah, the need to steal. Are they in chat? No, I'll let them respond. It's okay. Yeah, he a political guy. Yeah, he's definitely a political guy. Well, what did he say? I'm sorry, I'm solving mysteries of Azeroth right now. That's fine, don't worry about it. But anyway, look, here's the way I see it. You steal something, you should go to jail. It's real simple. Like, I don't know why, like, people try to make it complicated. It's not. You steal something from a store, you should go to jail for it. You know, maybe not the first time. Maybe you get, like, a ticket or something like that. But the second time, definitely. Absolutely. 100%. Straight to jail. Yeah. No, I'll watch this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to watch this first. So, apparently, young adults living with their parents. How many of y'all right now live with your mom? Live with your dad? Live with your parents?
About 1 in 3 Americans between 18 and 34 years old live with their parents.
Yep.
And while you may have heard more about this recently, this trend isn't new.
Between 2005 and 2015, this share just grew very steeply over this 10-year period. Since then, it's been fairly stable. There was an uptick, of course, during the pandemic. In the wake of the pandemic, those rates of parental care residence are now about where they were.
It's crazy how big of a difference that there is with men and women. Because green is women, blue is men. And men, it's like they're 10% higher to be living with their parents than women are. I think that's insane.
Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the nest or returning to the nest is this idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks.
Nearly 30% of Gen Z said they would like to save, but don't make enough money. And roughly 2 in 5 millennials and Gen Z adults feel it's harder to build financial wealth now than when their parents were their age because of the economy. 27-year-old Victoria Franklin has been living with her mother in New Jersey since she graduated college in 2019.
I saw all of the money
2019. Okay.
that I was saving,
She's like
and I
25.
thought, maybe I should stay home
23.
for a little bit, and I didn't feel an urgency to move out.
Not everyone is enthusiastic about this trend.
You guys are making 6 figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. They just don't want to spend their money.
They just don't want to spend their money. Yeah, exactly. That's the reason why. It's weird to me because I feel like a lot of, I feel like in a lot of Asian culture, it seems like this isn't really as normalized. And I don't know why in American culture it's become normalized that, like, you have to move out when you're 18. It feels kind of weird.
36% of Americans said in a 2022 survey that more young adults living with their parents is bad for society. So here's why young Americans are choosing to
I don't
live
think it's bad for society, but it's an indicator that society is bad, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think it's actually a bad thing, but the fact that, like, culturally that's not what's normal for us, but people are doing it anyway, it indicates that there's something wrong
with their parents and what the implications are for the U.S. economy.
My name is Victoria Franklin. I am 27 years old, and I live in my childhood home with my mother and my boyfriend.
How about
Victoria
that?
graduated from the University of Miami in 2019 and moved in with her mom when she was looking for a job.
After I saw the cost of living and things like that after
Yeah, it's expensive.
I graduated, that maybe I'd be home for about a year.
More than half of Gen Z adults say they don't make enough money to live the life they want due to high cost of living.
I ended up bartending and waitressing until October, where I got my first offer, so it did take a little bit longer than I expected. Currently live at the Jersey Shore, and I was commuting into New York City, which takes about 2 hours each way. And I thought, in 6 months or so, I'll move into the city, be closer to the job.
A 2-hour commute?
Threw a wrench in those plans.
Oh my
Victoria
God.
now works a fully remote job, which she says she probably wouldn't have if it weren't for the pandemic. Without
Yeah,
a commute
that's
to
true.
worry about, she was able to stay at her mom's for longer.
It's a lot harder for young people today to save up for, markers of the American dream than it was for previous generations.
This is why people are communists now, by the way. It's because they can't afford and they can't look forward to anything good in their life. And so they want to destroy the entire system because they're stuck living at their mom's house, like trying to apply for jobs that they're never going to get. That's the reason why. It's not even that people hate America. People hate America because they think that America hates them. That's it.
Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the
Trump case
nest or
got dropped.
returning to
Remind me
the
about that
nest
after
is this
this.
idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks. And so, for example, if they suffered a layoff or they suffer some sort of health shock or they got in a car accident, if they didn't have any additional credit to weather that shock, they would end up moving back home. The financial
That's what happens. It's like being broke and like not having like money to like fall back on. It's like playing hardcore in like Diablo or PoE or something. Like you make one mistake and you're back to like level 1.
stability of young adults, their ability to pay for things
your
if they got
progress
into an
reset.
emergency was one of the big factors influencing whether or not they were living on their own or living with their parents.
A significant number of Gen Z adults and millennials lack emergency savings.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, 46% of millennials and 32% of Gen Z have more credit card debt than emergency savings.
I gotta tell you something is that I think a big reason for that is because there's no financial literacy taught in high school in a lot of cases. And so people don't understand like wasting your money and like what credit card debt is, how interest is accrued, what is compounding interest, like how does this shit work? And so they just, as soon as they turn 18 and somebody says, I'm gonna give you a card that gives you $10,000, well, and none of this makes it okay, right? But like I'm just saying, like this is like, you cultivate an environment for this to happen, it's going to happen.
This can have ramifications for setting up a financial future.
Yeah.
Roughly 1 in 4 Gen Z adults say housing costs are one of the biggest challenges to financial success.
Fucking obviously. The reason why is because of the down payment, I think, for a lot of people. It's because, like, you know, if you don't have a lot of money, it's easy to get, like, a small amount of money together, but it's really hard to get a lot of money together. So, like, saving up, like, let's say 30 grand to, like, put a down payment on a house, like, I don't know how much it is. I have no idea. I've never had to do this. But, like, let's say saving, it's a 5-digit number in a lot of cases, right? Like, that's, like, impossible for people to do.
Prices of homes has actual incomes. So it is actually much harder for a millennial or a Gen Z to save up for a down payment to buy a home. And that's something that bears out in the data.
The pandemic did have a lot to do with it. I saw how much I was
20%?
saving and I was like, maybe I shouldn't be paying, you know, upwards of $3,000 a month and making somebody else richer when I could stay at home, save that money and spend it on where I want to spend it. Between my
I feel like what she's saying actually makes a lot of sense. And also, if you look at it without the cultural context of this being a reaction to effectively like a soft recession that people are seeing because of inflation and, you know, just like, you know, lower job opportunities, I think that it's a good thing that people stay with their parents. I do. I think it's a very good thing because that way, like, they can help take care of their parents. They can live all in the same place. I think it's good. Like I've said before, I think the way that, like, you know, a lot of Asian countries and Asian families do it, it's better than the way that we do it. It's absolutely better. And so it's like this whole premise that it's a problem that you're living with your parents. Who decided that?
my job and my bartending and waitressing, I make anywhere from
Normal in a lot of
$85,000
cultures?
to
Yeah.
$95,000 a year. I would say about 40 to 50% of my salary is going right into savings. My mentality is why rent and give my money to someone else when I can start to own? And so a big chunk of that money is going to go towards a down payment on the house.
Young adults ages
That's
25
smart.
to 34 in high cost of living areas
Yep.
are more likely to live with their parents.
Yeah,
Nearly
bro, look at California. Big fucking surprise there.
26% of
Yep.
young adults in New Jersey were living with at least one of their parents in 2022. The median household income in Oceanport, New Jersey, where the Franklins live, was nearly $133,000 in 2022, while the median value of a home in the region was around
It's a lot of money. Holy
$644,000.
shit.
My dad built this house for $350,000 and was making probably $10,000 to $15,000 less than I was. My mom wasn't working at the time.
Wow.
And they were able to afford a $350,000 house on a $70,000 a year salary with a son. And that is just, that's not even the American dream anymore. That's not even possible. My aunt,
Well, a lot of people look at $100,000 that you can make and think that's normal. But I feel like for a lot of people now, if you were making, like, let's say $100,000 in like 1998, I bet that's probably like 220,000 now. Let me see. So 80,000 in January of, let's say, 1998 versus October of 2024. I'm thinking 220,000. 156. It's less. Okay, to be fair, it is less. But man, that's like 50% more. That's a lot fucking more. 100K is insane? Yeah. It's still almost double? Yeah.
who I fight with all the time, is always saying how you have to give somewhere, right? And my cousin said something to her the other day and said, we're giving everywhere. We don't get property. We don't get good school systems. Whatever we're trading off is too much to trade off.
Victoria had brought up some conflict with her aunt a few times.
Oh, this is my Aunt Judy.
So I asked Aunt Judy to come on over and talk to us.
I talked about how much we
Family drama, oh boy.
fight about millennials, yes, but millennials living at home, and how you always say, well, you have to sacrifice something, but
Here we
how
go.
much we're sacrificing. We don't get like a big property, or we don't get like a nice house, or it's not in a good school system.
You have to start somewhere. You have to start anywhere. Just start your portfolio is what I told you. I don't care what it is.
What the hell does
You don't
that
have to
mean?
live in Oceanport your first time.
No, but you were able to live in Oceanport the first time.
Okay, I guess it was different times.
Gen X and baby
Okay, I guess. I mean, well, that was pretty fast.
boomers may have a tougher time understanding what young adults are going through today
Yeah.
because they enjoyed, until the pandemic recession hit, a solid almost 15 years of uninterrupted economic expansion. Baby boomers, Gen X, they weathered many economic downturns, including major recessions.
And my
But I
dad
think
told
the
me
big
about that.
difference is that when they were starting to form their own households and starting to accumulate wealth, housing and higher ed were
Well,
both.
here's another component to it that is another big factor, is that now the expectation is that it's going to get a lot worse. Like, nobody is thinking that with all these evolutions and, this like new stuff with technology that, oh, wow, now everybody's going to be rich. Like, it's really hard for me to explain the kind of optimism that people had in like the 90s for like economy and like science and the internet and like technology. And it's basically like, think about every single thing that we have now that we're thinking negatively about, and then imagine if all of those things were positive instead. That's what it was like.
More affordable
Totally different.
relative to their incomes than they are now.
You guys started out, I was making $35,000 a year. That was nothing. And he was making $35,000 a year. You guys are
That
making
was 185 years ago.
6 figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. You just don't want to spend their money.
Well, why is not wanting to spend your money why is that a bad idea? Like, because like, we're thinking about this. Like, why is it a bad idea that you don't want to spend your money? Who decided it's a bad idea?
No.
What was my first house? 250, maybe 270?
That doesn't exist anymore. Where am I finding a $270,000
I'm
house?
not making $35,000 a year. Combined, we made 70.
In 1995, $70,000 was the equivalent of $145,000 today.
Yeah, that's basically the math I did.
Look at that.
She's like, ooh, yeah, how about that?
See?
I did not expect this outcome.
We do also have a situation that what is really good for an individual person or an individual family is not necessarily good for the entire macroeconomy.
The Federal Reserve estimates in a 2019 paper that young adults who move out of their parents' house would spend around $13,000 more per year on things such as housing, food, and transportation.
That's
One
a
of
lot
the
of money.
big boosts to consumer spending is when people
I'm surprised
own
it's not
houses.
more.
Whether you're a renter or a buyer, you need to furnish that house. You need to fix things up in the home to make it livable. You end up spending a lot of money during that time. So if the pace of household formation slows down, then that's going to slow down the pace of consumer spending, and that will produce a drag on the economy.
Another issue.
Yeah, people can't spend money on stupid shit because they don't have any fucking money. Great analysis. That's true. So true. Absolutely.
Is that there aren't enough affordable properties in popular areas for younger people who are in entry-level jobs and making less money.
Any sort of housing policy needs to be multi-pronged. Are there homes that are at the price point of these prospective home buyers?
The problem is people buy up these houses, and like a lot of these houses are rented out. So like you can tell and figure this out when you look at like, for example, what's that fucking place? You can rent a house. It's not Uber House. It's not DoorDash. What's it called again? Airbnb. There it is. Airbnb. Like, if you look at how many houses that are Airbnbs now and that are basically being turned into, like money printers, the amount of people that are owning houses, and like, I'm not talking about like just BlackRock owning a bunch of houses. I'm talking about like individual people who own like 2 or 3 houses and then they farm them out to people. This is massive. It's a massive fucking industry. Like, I live in Austin, Texas, and somebody showed me the amount of like houses that were like that like 10 years ago maybe versus now, and it's just a night and day difference. Limit the amount that somebody can own. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not sure what the solution for it is, but I think it's definitely that basically people that have a lot of capital are able to buy up a lot of property, and then they're able to exercise that ownership in a way that feels oppressive to people that don't have the capital. I think that's fundamentally what's happening.
What can we do to increase the housing supply? What can we do to build? What can we do to help elder Americans, to help them downsize and move into more right-sized homes that will open up larger homes for young families? And so I think one alone is not really going to do it. We've got to look both at demand as well as supply.
The other major factor here is how much student loan debt young Americans have. 59%.
They should just, for like my opinion, I think they should forgive all the student loan debt. They should let people default on it, like for bankruptcy. I view student loan debt as grooming. I think it's financial grooming, because you have children that are brought up in a school system that gives them the viewpoint that it is necessitating college. Like, you have to go to college. You have your parents in a lot of cases that tell you you have to go to college. You go to a school that tells you you have to go to college. All of your teachers went to college. The entire culture that you're surrounded with tells you that if you don't go to college, you kind of just didn't make it. So big surprise that after years and years of consolidated and concerted efforts in grooming, that a person puts, you know, a massive financial burden on themselves, hoping for a better life. And I think, like, really the main component of student loans that I find is, like, actually the most compelling is the grooming aspect of it. It's the fact that you're basically approaching children that, by the nature of their age, don't understand anything like interest. They don't understand anything like, you know, like taxes. Like, they don't get these things. They're brainwashed, right? And then you basically take advantage of, like, this kid. You're spawn camping them as soon as they're 18. You lock them into, like, you know, a $40,000 of debt. Now they're an indentured servant for the rest of their life. They're paying down their interest on their student loans. They can never pay down the principal. They're stuck with this for their whole life. And that's it. Like, I mean, of course they're going to be communists. Of course they're going to want to fucking, like, burn down the system. Of course they're going to riot. Why wouldn't they riot? Like, put yourself in their shoes. Yeah, of course that happens. Because these are, again, decisions that are being made, and they're taken in the context of, like, brainwashing that happened and grooming that happened while they were a minor. Why shouldn't they riot? Exactly. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, they should get rid of these. Or, like, at least have it to where, like, they stop paying interest. Nobody forced them to study, right? Individual responsibility. So I think that your individual responsibility argument is strong, but I think it becomes less strong when you contextualize it around the fact that they were groomed into this while they were minors. That's, I think, the strongest component that goes against the individual responsibility. It's a systematic issue. Yeah. I'm not saying that you're totally wrong, but I do think that you're not 100% right.
U.S. adults say they've delayed financial milestones because of their student debt.
Exactly.
I do have a student loan payment.
I had a friend, like, now he's, like, you know, he's doing great, but actually that's not true. So I have a friend, this is going to sound funny. He gets drunk all the time, and he's the manager of a nuclear power plant. Like, he's literally Homer Simpson. And he's like living, like, somewhere up north now, right? He's, like, managing a nuclear power plant up there. Well, he had so much student loan debt that he was working at the hospital here. And, like, he was, like, working, like, tech at the hospital, and he had been working there for, like, you know, many, many years. And he just wasn't able to pay off the student loan debt. Well, he had to join the military, and he was, like, in a nuclear submarine for, like, years in order to, like, be able to pay off that student loan debt and actually be able to get a job. And this is after he got a degree at St. Edward's University here. Then I had another friend that went to UT, and he got a degree in theoretical physics, which got him a theoretical job. So then he already had, like, you know, $60,000 of debt from that. Then he had to go get an actual degree in actual engineering so he could get an actual job. Eric? No, this is actually my friend Alec, but, like, we were all part of the same friend group. And so he got an engineering job, and, like, you know, then he was making, like, over $100K a year for sure. But, like, I remember talking to him, like, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years, probably about 5 years ago, I'd say. And he still had over $100,000 of student loan debt. It was crazy. Don't choose useless degrees. I think in a lot of cases that's probably true, but I think that when you look at, again, I think a person should always look at themselves as the first, you know, like, as the first line of accountability with everything. But you also have to look at systematic factors that cause things to happen more often. And it's possible to look at a person and say, you should have made a better decision. And at the same time, look at a system and say that this system needs to be improved to be a better system. Like, both of these things can be true at the same time. It's not like it's an either-or situation.
About $480 a month. So that's my largest expense.
The liability could be worse for Black borrowers, who tend to have higher than average student loan debt and less wealth than white counterparts. Black and Hispanic respondents were more likely to say that debt was holding them back from reaching financial milestones.
Well, the reason why, I mean, it's very easy to understand why a Black household would have this problem more often, right? Because, like, with a lot of white households, you don't have, like, if, like, let's say you're a Black family, right? It's very simple. Your grandparents were victims of segregation. Like, you actually had systematic ways that the government was, like, keeping your family and your people down, and you were being suppressed, and you did not have access to certain things. You get behind a lot. Chat's gonna disagree. This is just a fact, right? So, like, for example, and white people can have this problem too. And I still think that the way that you address this problem is through class and not through race, because a white person can very easily have this problem. But I think that it makes sense that it affects people that are minorities, especially Black people, more often. Because they're the ones that had to recover from, what do you call it? They had to recover from, segregation, Jim Crow, and before that, slavery. So, for example, like my family, we came over to America in like the 1500s or the 1600s. So, like, by the time that, like, you know, my dad was a kid, like, they had already built up multi-generational wealth. So it's not that big of a deal. But for a lot of people that, you know, like, let's say they just basically, they only have had like 2 generations to really build any sense of like actual consistent generational wealth. You see kind of what I'm saying? Black people have a debuff. I don't think that they have a debuff, but like imagine it's like a WoW server and they didn't have access to early access. They couldn't get the 3-day early access to the new MMO. So while everybody else is like level 35, they're still in the starter zone. That's basically what happened. And I think that this probably, like, the effects of this will last for the next 100 years. And that's a very generous assumption. It could be even longer than that. Interesting analogy? No, I'm being serious, right? And like I know that, like, obviously this might sound like a weird take from me, disagree, but to each their own. I can't see how a person can disagree and think that Jim Crow wasn't a debuff. How can you think that, like, literal segregation, sundown laws aren't a debuff? I mean, really, I mean, and so, like, and here's the cascade effect that creates. So your family, like, let's be very optimistic and say that your grandfather, if you're Black, was the first person in your family who was able to, like, really build wealth. You've only had 2 generations to build that wealth. Imagine now what the probability is of that family being able to have that much generational wealth to be able to pay for the new generation of that family to go to college. It is going to be at a lower ratio and at a lower proportion than white people. You see kind of what I'm saying? It's not just a racism argument. No, it's not. Well, what I'm saying is that, so there's a lot of ways that people can get to this. There's a lot of ways that people can arrive at this problem. So, like, there's plenty of white people who, you know, like, they had a really good family. They had one person in their family, one generation, ruin everything. And now they have, you know, basically, you know, they have to restart their character. And so they might have the exact same problem. So it's not like this doesn't happen to white people. But the difference is that for Black people, it happened for more of them because of a systematic reason. And, like, the reverberations and ripple effects of that systematic reason are still being felt today. And I think that this is an example of that. It's that simple. It's a bullshit take. How is it not? This is different than your usual take on affirmative action? Simple. So the reason why it's different than my take on affirmative action is that I believe in affirmative action. I just don't believe that it should be race-based. So basically, from my perspective, I think that you should have affirmative action, but you should have it for people that are disenfranchised with like based off of their class. So if your family doesn't have a lot of money, you should get certain advantages, right? You should have money allocated to you so you can have an American dream. Now, I think that that will disproportionately help minorities more. But it's not about who it's helping. It's not about the race of the people that it's helping. It's about the income of the people that it's helping. So, like, I still think it's a problem, but I just think the problem should be addressed from a way that's different than identity. Yeah. People are inheriting money. How much? Yeah, people do inherit money. Twitch chat's racist as fuck. Well, and that's why I think it's important for me to say this, because I know that like a lot of people that watch my stream, they have like a very anti-DEI, anti-affirmative action, like anti that type of like outlook. And I let you guys say that kind of stuff in general, as long as it doesn't turn into, you know, like a, you know, an Adolf rally or something like that. Like, you guys can have those opinions. And that's why I think it's important for me to like put it into context, because I actually do think this is a problem. And whenever I'm criticizing it, I'm criticizing the methods. But just because I criticize the methods that they're using to solve the problem doesn't mean that I don't think that the problem exists. I think that the problem absolutely exists. And logically, if you look at it, you can see why it would make sense. Explain Asians then? Explain Indians? What do you mean? Explain Asians or Indians? Like, if you're going to use, so are you going to use, like, for example, like the internment camps? Because if you use the internment camps, the U.S. paid reparations for them. So if you really want parity, like, are you saying that we should pay reparations? They immigrated, yeah, and a lot of them also immigrated here. Like, a lot of the people that I know that are like Chinese or like you know, Japanese or Korean, a lot of them, and this is again, like, this is sample size of like 5, a lot of them, they immigrated here themselves. And like, a lot of the reason why they immigrated here is because they had the money to do that.
Half of white respondents said the same.
The amount of debt young adults held also rose substantially between 2005 and 2014, during that period of strong escalation in that cohort living with their parents.
Yep.
Aggregate student loans are such an enormous...
A lot of people are disagreeing with this. A lot of them immigrated from extremely rich positions in that place, yeah. It's a cultural issue. I think that culture is a factor too, but I think that you can also look at cultural and systematic issues, and they're not mutually exclusive. So while you are going to have cultural problems, that doesn't mean that people who have a disadvantage shouldn't be acknowledged that it's a disadvantage. Chat's not getting it. I think the reason why chat doesn't get it and people don't understand it, and I'd be willing to, like, if somebody is disagreeing with me about this, you know, like, I'd be willing to, like, listen to what you're saying, but I don't think people are looking at it in the right way. Yeah, they don't want to. You can't generalize this shit. Get it together. Yeah. Culture is not really a factor. It's just heritage. I think that everything is a factor. I think culture absolutely is a factor. I think heritage is a factor. It absolutely is. I think your history of the country is a factor. I think it all is. It's not like one thing causes it to happen. Affirmative action should not be a thing no matter what. You shouldn't get a job over someone who's more qualified, no matter what race or class. So affirmative action in this circumstance... So let me go ahead and kind of explain it to you what I mean in terms of like it being class-based. I don't think that that should be the case for getting a job or getting a career, right? But I do think it should be the case for being able to get an education. So whenever I look at, like, basically it's kind of like the difference between, you know, like equal opportunity and equal outcome. I view giving a person an education as equal opportunity. I feel like giving a person a job as equal outcome. That's why I support being able to help people get jobs, or sorry, get education, but not get jobs. Do you see kind of what I'm saying here? government falls apart when you look at the history of Asians in this country. Well, let me go ahead and look at it here. Let me read it right here. So how does it fall apart? Let me read it. Equality and opportunity, not equality and outcome. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'll give him a minute. We're going to listen to what he says. Reasonable argument. It's fine. He's probably talking about being so wealthy. It's not because they push good education or whatever. Well, like, for example, like Jim Crow laws weren't invented to suppress Asians, for example. Like, there isn't the same type of, like, cultural... I'm trying to think, like... There's not the same type of, like, cultural racism against, like, Asians as there is against black people because of slavery. I think that's a huge difference. Asians didn't suffer through slavery? Yeah. I don't think this person's really coming up with any other responses or whatever. I'll just time them out. But anyway, here's what my point is. If somebody is part of an Asian family and they don't have a lot of money, I think that they should also be a recipient of that affirmative action. It's very simple. So, like, if somebody is Asian and they have this issue, then absolutely they should be recipients of it. So there's nothing, all I was saying is that it's easy to understand why minorities that have been historically oppressed in a country are going to be starting with a disadvantage or are going to have, like, I feel like it's such an obvious take that people that have had a history of oppression would be less likely to have generational wealth. How is this even an argument? Like, really, like, how is it an argument? Like, I'm really surprised here. Yeah, chat's crazy. Yeah, of course that's the way it is. Chat's brain dead. Yeah. The Slavs in Europe, chat's really full of idiots. You're Europe. So the opportunities are based off of, are not based off of merit. Let me read this real quick. So what do you mean by this? The silly part is that everybody else is supposed to compensate them? I think it's not about everybody else compensating them. It's about making sure that people have a chance inside of a system. And also that compensation, if it disproportionately affects a certain group of people more often, I think that's fine. So the slot should go to who earns it more?
Super Smash.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Yeah, I'm not saying that people should get jobs. I'm saying that, like, there should... So do you think that there shouldn't be... Do you think that poor people shouldn't get any financial aid for college? Because if that's your opinion, then that's okay, that's fine, right? Just ignored what you said about equality of outcome versus opportunity. Not to who is more disenfranchised. So how should it be determined then? So, like, you think poor people should get these same opportunities as, like, rich people for, like, college? Because that's an opinion you can have. I disagree with that opinion. I think it's a bad idea to do that, but that's fine. Yes, they should, but there are only a certain number of slots. Well, then... So then we agree. I'm very confused. I think that we agree then.
Our infusion. Very mortal strike.
It's not surprising you're getting this backlash. Your chat leans more right-wing. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people, this is like such a charged topic that people are throwing out all type of like logic or reason in order to have the same opinion. Are you saying people should receive education help based on race or class? Well, but based off of class. Obviously based off of class. Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious. That's what I've said before. All I was saying is that a class-based initiative like that would probably disproportionately affect minorities more. And so, like, here's another factor. I'm going to go even farther with this because we're talking a lot about money, but we're also not talking about education. So both of my parents were college educated. They both have, advanced college degrees. And so, and also most importantly, they both speak English. Being able to communicate and grow up in an English speaking household is a tremendous privilege in America. And I think also people that were denied a degree of education because of like, maybe let's say like their grandfather, wasn't able to go to a good school because of segregation. Let's just as an example. Or, let's say they came from another country. They are operating at a disadvantage because they didn't grow up in a household where they had access to people communicating in the language that they have to exist in. It's a bonus stat, yeah. And there's a lot of examples and like kind of soft privileges and soft advantages that people have. And I think that the problem is that when whenever you're talking about and you're looking at privileges and advantages that people have, people view it as you trying to like invalidate or like compartmentalize their success. And that's really not true. But what is true is that some people don't have those advantages. And I think that if you can, it would be good to give other people the chance to succeed. People immediately think this is a white and black issue in the US. Well, the media has done a very good job of doing that. And I'll go ahead and I'll look at another commenter here. It's impossible to compensate everyone fairly. So do you understand the way that so right now there's like student loans that are available for people that are, like they don't make as much money. So why do you think it would be impossible to do that? Yeah, because like, for example, if like, if your household makes under a certain income and you're, because of that, you're eligible for certain types of student aid, I feel like that would be a good thing. Yeah, that's where scholarship comes in for poor people. Yeah, exactly. You would have to do ancestry tests to trace back everyone's disadvantages. I really think this is really sad. I do. I think this is honestly really sad. I don't know what to do about this either. I think people are really brainwashed. Why do we have so many race-pilled morons in chat who can't do anything but think about race? I'm gonna tell you why. It's because mainstream media has conditioned them to see every single issue in the entire world through the lens of race. They have been categorically and systematically trained and brainwashed into seeing every single thing through the lens of race. And the moment that they hear race get mentioned, it's like, in Zoolander when they play Relax. They just turn into a completely different person and start, kind of going through their pre-programmed thinking. Yeah, you don't even understand what's being discussed. Like, and by the way, you got banned because you're being rude, not because you're disagreeing. Because you said affirmative action, you're both wrong, so chill. Well, you understand that affirmative action can go past any sort of like race-based things.
Hurry back!
Like, I mean, if you look at the term for it, that's totally fine to use that term. As if, yeah. And I think that I'm using it was race-based. Sure. It's an easy way for people, because everybody understands what affirmative action is. I'll be right back. I need to use the bathroom.
That's all. Please, Kev. Power infusion. Damage.
Okay. We good? Don't you think education is a much deeper problem? It's not okay public schools, so much some variation in quality. Yeah. Hot take, affirmative action you're talking about is caused by student loan. People experience it with college. So yeah, anyway, I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of like restate what I think. And if people don't want to listen to it or whatever, that's fine. But I think this is a logical and indisputable fact. So basically you're conflating affirmative action with scholarships. No, I'm just saying affirmative action should be based off of income. So basically what I'm saying is that I think that for people that are, like, I believe in affirmative action, but for income rather than race. But I do think that when you do affirmative action for income rather than race, you are going to have it disproportionately help people that are minorities. Whether it's because of systematic or historical discrimination, whether it's because of recent immigration, or whether it's because of something just as simple as them not growing up in an English-speaking household and it being harder for them to integrate with culture. So for me to say that a group of people that has been systematically oppressed would have a lower probability, or sorry, a higher probability to not be currently wealthy, I think this is a logical thing to say. There's nothing wrong with me saying this. There's nothing crazy about this. I think it's just common sense. But the reason why I think I'm getting a lot of pushback on this is because a lot of people spend a lot of time on mainstream media and they get trained like, I don't know, like it's like a Pavlovian dog response or something, where it's like the moment that they hear race or affirmative action, their brain just reverts back to like what they've heard on social media or what they've heard on mainstream media, and they just immediately start repeating these lines. But I'm not talking about them. People aren't listening to what I'm saying. They hear like one or two keywords, and then they go back to their factory settings and they start saying the things that they're supposed to say. And you can see that be very evident here in chat when you have people that are like trying to like, they're arguing against things that I'm not even saying, right? Like I've restated this like 7 different times, and every single time people don't understand it. They want you to say what you want to hear? Yeah. And so I think this is a logical and completely common sense approach to have. And I find it to be interesting that so many people think that it's problematic. But, oh, my dad's calling. Put you on speaker. Okay. Am I fucking wrong? What? Am I fucking wrong? You're right.
more whites than there are any other group.
You're right.
All of them together. But the percentage.
Well, there are more of them, but less of them per capita. Yeah, I understand. I think we all get it.
And so, well, no, I don't think everybody does get that. They're feeling like you're saying, well, we'll give them affirmative action, what you said so far.
Yeah.
Pretty much their race, but you said, according to this stuff, but then when you get to family, you talk about people who come from a non-English speaking family, and that's primarily Hispanic.
Yeah. True.
And then you talk about black. That's what, say the word affirmative action, it's a trigger word. It's a trigger term. And nobody wants to utilize, well, a lot of white people, they don't want to hear that shit. They believe in a meritocracy.
Yeah.
No, believe in a meritocracy.
I do.
And here in Austin, for Austin Community College, where you went,
Yep.
and they're almost at the point where it's free tuition. So you can get your first 2 years, and like I did, I got.
Well, I know you did, but well, like, what's your point? Because I'm trying to get back to it. Like, I mean, this is a 10-minute video. I spent 10 minutes talking about this.
We're getting a lot of pushback, and here's why. You don't include whites when you say more. And that's and oh, by the way, yeah, the family came over. My grandfather had a whole lot of money. My old man lost everything. And we were living in a fucking swamp. We had nothing. And so, you know, by the way, that's the background. You know this, so.
I do.
Everybody, we were wealthy. No.
Well, we were, then we weren't, and, you know, now things are pretty good.
Yeah, Gary and Susan,
Yep.
my brother and sister, you know, they build up their wealth.
They're doing real well.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're millionaires like you are.
Yeah.
And but they did it. They did it themselves. And
Yeah.
they had an inheritance, but they could only draw like $5,000 from it a year, way back.
Yeah, yeah.
It's up to pay for college, and that's how they got out of speed living in metal law. You know. Where
Yeah,
we
yeah.
live. And so the same with you. I mean, you could have gone up to Texas State and gotten a good job.
Yep. Yep. You're right.
And you were doing so great, you could have got a scholarship.
Oh yeah.
But one of the problems is that the people that don't speak English, or people that are black and so forth, that the going to college is often not as valued as it is in white households.
It's definitely, there's cultural problems with it too, for sure.
Cultural problems, and those are what need to be addressed.
Well, there's a lot of things. I feel like it's not just one thing; it's everything. That's
yeah.
well, that's what my point was, right? Yeah, no, they are.
Better for black people and Hispanics than they were when I was a kid.
Yeah. What did they say? What were the water fountains whenever you were a kid?
Oh yeah, it was the white and colored. That was the word that was used.
Yeah.
And the real insult was white gentlemen, black men, white ladies, black women, and I mean it was just like right in your face.
Yeah.
In Pete, Florida, and probably the most conservative place in the fucking country. The people born in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Retired, they're old people mostly. And boy, as a white kid, if I drank out of that colored fountain because there was a line of old ladies there waiting to get a drink in Publix, I drank out of that damn black fountain. Those old ladies, they had parasols, you know, like I said, to keep themselves white. And man, I get hit in the fucking head. I get smacked with their cane. Get away from here, boy. And and that's the way it was. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no eating at the fucking
Yeah. And
or anything,
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. And that's in Kresge's and were big stores.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. And so now that is not the case. And
No, I know it's a lot different. Well, I gotta get back to it because like,
You're right. It's
Yeah.
a matter of, and but you know, include in this poor white.
yeah, no, you're right.
Go to white.
You're right. You're right.
There's a bunch of hillbillies and shit that they don't care, and they're also another thing is people are finally realizing that instead of calling them voc ed, they're saying practical degrees. They used to want to turn universities into basically trade schools.
Yeah.
And but they're going more after trades, especially at the what do you call it? What's that? Junior college and community college. They're going, they're leaning more into that instead of being prepped for college. They're also teaching now how to be a programmer, how to weld and all.
Okay.
And giving people a leg up, and those people can make a good living.
Yeah.
Get older, and then their kids make the leap up.
No, I understand.
That's why
Yeah.
I think you get this pushback. You got to
Okay.
include one.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right, yo.
All right. Yo. Bye.
Yo, bye-bye.
Yeah, no, maybe it's something that like I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about that. So like it's maybe a communication thing, but I hope people can see kind of where I'm coming from. Yeah, they can definitely. Let's see here. But yeah, that's at least the way that's where I'm coming from. I think it makes a lot of sense. It does.
In that cohort living with their parents.
Aggregate student loans are such an enormous part of the economy now. And that's not a reflection of younger people making bad choices with their education. It's really a consequence in large part due to the fact that there's less public funding and going to college just is more expensive, which makes it even harder for even those college grads who are hoping to get earning more money as a result of their college degrees.
Student loan debt by itself can't explain the phenomenon, especially considering so many European countries with much less student loan debt have higher rates of young adults living with their parents. 24 out of 29 European countries had more 18 to 34-year-olds living with their parents in 2021 than the US. It was over 70% in Italy, Portugal, Greece, Serbia, and Croatia.
My boyfriend is Brazilian, and multi-generational homes are very common in almost everywhere else in the world, except in the United States. So I'm just taking a page of their playbook.
The Americans are probably the only people that they're not multi-generations in one house.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, that's what's so confusing to me about this is like, why do we have to do it like this?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's kind of nice. Why do we have to be so cold to push everybody out?
You know, there are a lot of cultures out there in which it is normal to live with your parents until you get married.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's necessarily an economic explanation for that.
The Franklins would say in the US, it is the economy, but Victoria's mom is kind of okay with it.
Unfortunately, it is the economy and the world that we live in that just doesn't allow them to go live a comfortable life. So with them living here was no big deal. It's not really a problem. They're saving their money. Eventually they'll buy a house, and that works.
Eventually they'll buy a hopefully, right? Someone under a serious topic, yeah. And it'd be nice if my mom was an alcoholic. Yeah, sure. Wife pays $5K a month to pay off student loans, working off a $250K student loan. Yeah, like it's really, really, really fucking bad. Student loans are brutal for people. It is so bad. So yeah, daughter's smiling smug. Yeah, like across the table. Yeah, of course she's happy, right? I mean, that's the way it should be. And I feel like, yeah, you're going to play fresh servers full throttle? No, I have no, I want to tell people, like a lot of people have asked about this. I have no interest and no desire to play the WoW fresh servers. I am not going to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't think that it's fun. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. I've been there. I've done that multiple times. I'm just not going to do it again. Now, I know that obviously, yeah, we'll watch the Mr. Beast video today. We'll watch at least the first half of it. Not the entire thing, but watch the first half. There's more to life to it. I mean, I feel like it's not just that there's more to life to it. It's also that, like, I just don't think it's going to be fun. Like, I don't know. I would just rather do something different. I mean, what the fuck do you want me to say? So, yeah, that's the way I see it. I just moved out of my mom's apartment. The moment I stopped education, my rent would increase by $1,000. Holy shit. Yeah, that's crazy. You plan on watching a Flight 6 from SpaceX in an hour? Maybe, yeah. I mean, I'll watch the Joe Rogan thing. I was going to look at this. And, you know. This is just... Joe Rogan has gotten so fucking popular. It is insane. I'm actually kind of surprised. Joe Rogan. Yeah, Joe Rogan destroyed the mainstream media. I feel like the mainstream media, by the way, destroyed itself. Yeah, it's not really Joe Rogan. It's just that people got alienated from mainstream media, and Joe Rogan was there to kind of be, you know, their rebound, basically.
Joe Rogan's not a journalist. He's never claimed to be, nor has he ever tried to be. He seems to just be a man who likes talking to people